The summer before my junior year of high school, I interned at a nonprofit organization called the American Living Organ Donor Network, which helps facilitate organ donations nationwide. As a part of my administrative duties, I was scrolling through the organization's email inbox and came across one peculiar and very curious email. The email subject line read, "No subject." I know, riveting. So I hesitantly clicked this email open and was completely shocked by the email's contents. To protect the privacy of the sender, I won't go into specifics as to exactly what the email said, but the email was from someone overseas who wanted to come to the United States to sell his kidney. This person, knowing that kidneys can be priced upwards of thousands of dollars on the black market, wished to sell a part of himself. This encounter was the start of my 1.5-year journey into the world of black market organs and illegal donations. However, my greatest takeaway from this journey was not learning how dire the organ donation crisis is, but rather the need for interdisciplinary study. So let's take a step back. What is interdisciplinary study? Well, Merriam-Webster defines interdisciplinary as involving 2 or more academic, scientific, or artistic disciplines. Pretty straightforward, right? If you like math and you like English, you study both. Or if you like video games and you like physics, you study video game physics. Or as my mother likes to call it, don't bother in focusing 2 things, just be good at 1. And perhaps that's the core problem. We mistranslate interdisciplinary as indecisive or do 2 things at the same time. When I was younger, I wanted to be a marine biologist, engineer, figure skater, painter, and firebender. And my mother thought it was cute. She signed me up for figure skating in the winter and science camp in the summer. But as I grew older and high school approached, doing multiple things was no longer seen as cute. It was costly, expensive, and just time-consuming and just not very realistic. Apparently, figure skaters who engineer new firebending techniques to save dolphins just don't have too much job security. But if you do know where I can apply, don't hesitate to see me after. My research into existing and developing solutions brought me to the 2016 White House Summit on Organ Donation, the first of its kind, organized by President Barack Obama, who wanted to bring the issue of organ donations to the forefront of policy discussion. I faced this problem with compartmentalizing when I attended Troy High School, which is a STEM magnet school. At Troy High School, most students come to Troy because they want to be good at STEM subjects, or they have aspiring STEM careers. And most of these students place a very clear divide between their math, history, science, and English classes. The minute the bell for physics class ends, the minute the bell for physics class rings, they enter English class with a completely different mindset. I faced the same problem with compartmentalizing when I studied the organ donation crisis. The numbers explain it all. 22 people die every day while waiting for an organ transplant. The average wait time is 3.6 years. The kidney failure is the 9th leading cause of death in the United States, and nearly 31 million people suffer from chronic kidney disease, making up nearly 10% of the United States population. I can give you another statistic that might surprise you. Nearly 2,000 children need an organ transplant right now. But put super simply, the organ donation crisis is a pretty serious problem. And don't ask me about it. Ask 31 million Americans first. As I studied the 2016 White House Summit on Organ Donation, one of the major solution opportunities that were posited was utilizing social media to recruit more donors and potentially decrease the gap between donors and people who needed organs. And as a result, my solution question, and one research question I really wanted to answer, was does social media as a solution to the organ donation crisis create more problems than it solves? I compete in speech and debate, and we call this kind of question CBA, or cost-benefit analysis. By this point, you're asking, Julianne, what does this have anything to do with interdisciplinary study? Thank you for asking, engaged audience member. The greatest challenge to answering my research question was the lack of interdisciplinary study and the limitations that it created. As a result, I was unable to see exactly what organ donation was about because not too many people were just studying it. There's too many complicated factors and different subjects that needed to be explored, but not many people were crossing these discipline lines in order to study and really find out how to solve the organ donation crisis. My research into the organ donation crisis showed me that oftentimes people don't look at the disciplines in a holistic level. As a result, we are unable to look at these problems and come up with a clear solution for them. One reason why people don't seem to be studying the effects of social media on the organ donation crisis is that there's too many difficult gray areas, and it crosses too many disciplines, including biology, philosophy, psychology, and media studies. And no one really seems to be studying the effects of social media on the organ donation crisis exactly for this reason. My solution was then to identify and categorize the different ways that social media is impacting the organ donation crisis, whether it is obvious or whether it is discrete. My first solution was then to study biology to understand how the kidney works and how donating can potentially incur costs for living donors. I then studied bioethics and philosophy to understand what makes an organ donation ethical and what makes it unethical. I pored over media studies papers to understand the concept of anonymity in a world where social networking seems to be the #1 option. And because professionals have been unable to come up with a solution to the organ donation crisis, patients have been forced to become more creative with how they gain organs online, often resulting in unethical and illegal ways, which explains the email that I received earlier and explains the organ black market. Ultimately, what I learned from this journey was that there needs to be more interdisciplinary study in the United States education system. Rather than just focusing on subjects as a single subject or a single discipline, we need more cross-action between them as a whole. Refusing to encourage interdisciplinary study at a young age could have potentially disastrous consequences. Students are bred to only focus on the short-term effects rather than looking at the problem as a whole. Solutions that are formed through non-interdisciplinary thinking can often placate problems, but don't offer true solutions for them. In order to ensure that we become true problem solvers, we need to prioritize interdisciplinary thinking in our primary and secondary education system. For example, elementary students can study history and math together by studying why Egyptians seem to be creating pyramids with proportions and fractions in mind. High school students could be assigned long-term projects with components and parts of the project in each different class. Historically speaking, cross-disciplinary projects have led to some of the most extraordinary results. For example, Japanese mechanical engineers studied the flight pattern of birds in order to design a train that was more efficient, quieter, and faster. Learning music and actually teaching music has been shown to stimulate parts of the brain and actually improve the memories of patients suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's. Theoretical physics questions concerning space and time have oftentimes been known to include discussions about philosophy as well. And in its own little way, interdisciplinary thinking is a little bit like organ donation. Like organ transplants, interdisciplinary thinking requires us to step outside of the box and take something fresh and new, and transplant it into a problem to make it something that works, something new, an actual solution. So let's stop thinking about interdisciplinary thinking as something that's indecisive or unnecessary or extra, because it is none of those. In fact, it is the most important and most necessary form of study, because it allows for new, innovative solutions to be made. So next time you feel stuck on a problem, don't just think outside of the box. Also think interdisciplinary.